I was driving to what I thought would be a normal family reunion when my husband suddenly went pale and told me to turn the car around. I trusted him without question. That decision saved us from something I never saw coming. It was a Saturday morning in October, the kind of crisp, perfect day that makes you feel grateful for simple things. My kids were in the backseat arguing over snacks. My husband David was scrolling through his phone, and I was actually looking forward to seeing my parents after months of being too busy with work and life. We'd driven this route to their house hundreds of times over the years. 35 minutes through winding country roads, past the old church where David and I got married, past the farm stand where I used to buy pumpkins as a kid. It should have been routine, peaceful, even. But about 20 minutes into the drive, I noticed David had gone completely still. His phone was in his lap, his hands were gripping his knees, and when I glanced over, his face had lost all color. Are you okay? I asked, keeping my voice light because the kids were listening. He didn't answer right away, just stared ahead with this expression I'd never seen before, focused, but also worried, really worried. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, he said, "Turn the car around." I laughed, thinking he was joking. What, we're almost there. Sarah, his voice was different now, serious. I need you to turn the car around. Right now. The way he said my name stopped me cold. David isn't dramatic. He's a lawyer, calm under pressure, the kind of person who thinks before he speaks. If he was telling me to turn around, something was very wrong. But mom and dad are expecting us, I said, even as I was already slowing down, looking for a place to turn. Trust me, he said, please just trust me. I pulled into a farm driveway and turned the car around. My 8-year-old son immediately protested from the back seat. Where are we going? I thought we were going to Grandma and Grandpa's. Change of plans, buddy, David said, his voice steady again. We'll see them another time. My daughter, always the perceptive one, asked, are they sick? No, sweetheart, they're fine. We need to go home for now. The drive back was tense. The kids eventually settled into their tablets, but I kept glancing at David, waiting for an explanation. He was typing furiously on his phone, making calls, speaking in low, clipped tones about legal terms I didn't understand. When we got home, David asked me to sit down. The kids ran upstairs to their rooms, and suddenly the house felt very quiet. What's going on? I asked. He showed me his phone. I got a call from my friend Marcus at the firm. Remember him? He handles real estate law. I nodded. He said there was some unusual activity this week. Someone had been asking questions about property transfers, specifically about transferring assets to adult children in cases of diminished capacity. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means, David said carefully, that someone was looking into how to legally take control of assets when a family member is declared mentally unfit. I stared at him. That doesn't make sense. Who would? Sarah, he said gently. The person asking these questions gave your name as a reference. They said they were your parents. The words hit me like ice water. My parents were asking about declaring me mentally unfit. Not just asking. According to Marcus, they've been working on this for weeks. They've apparently been collecting evidence of erratic behavior, missed family gatherings, financial irresponsibility. They even mentioned your postpartum depression from 3 years ago. I couldn't breathe. My parents, who I'd been supporting financially for the past 5 years, who I'd helped through dad's heart surgery and mom's hip replacement, who called me their responsible daughter, they were trying to have me declared incompetent. But why? I whispered. David's expression was grim. Your grandmother's inheritance. My grandmother had passed away 8 months earlier, leaving me her house and a substantial savings account. It was life-changing money, enough to pay off our mortgage, fund the kids' college accounts, maybe even start the business I'd always dreamed of. But I'd been too busy grieving and dealing with the legal process to do anything with it yet. Marcus said the meeting today wasn't just a family reunion, David continued. Your parents had arranged for a court-appointed psychiatrist to be there, someone who would observe your behavior and potentially support their petition for guardianship. I felt sick. They were going to ambush me. It looks that way with the kids there in a familiar setting where you'd feel safe. They probably figured you wouldn't cause a scene, and any emotional reaction you had could be used as evidence of instability. I thought about all the phone calls over the past few weeks. Mom asking about my work stress, whether I was sleeping well, if I was handling everything okay after grandma's death. Dad wondering if maybe I should take a break from making big decisions. I thought they were being caring. They were building a case. What do we do now? I asked. David was already ahead of me. We document everything, every conversation, every text, every financial transaction, and we make sure your inheritance is protected. That evening, I called my sister Jessica, who lived across the country. I needed to know if she was involved. Sarah, she said, sounding genuinely happy to hear from me. How was the reunion? Mom said you guys never showed up. I explained what had happened, watching my words carefully. Jessica's silence grew longer and longer. Finally, she said, "Oh my God. Sarah, they tried the same thing with me 2 years ago." What? When Grandpa died and left me his coin collection, they kept saying I was irresponsible with money, that I needed help managing my finances. They even suggested I move back home for a while just until I got back on my feet. I thought they were being supportive, but now they were testing the waters, I realized. And when I didn't fall for it, they moved on to you. Jessica and I spent the next hour comparing notes. The pattern was clear. Our parents had been systematically targeting whichever child came into money, trying to gain control of their assets under the guise of family concern. The next morning, I called my parents. I needed to hear their side, even though I already knew the truth. Sarah, honey, mom's voice was bright, but I could hear the underlying tension. We were so worried yesterday. David said you weren't feeling well. I'm fine, Mom. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Grandma's inheritance. A pause. Oh, that, well, you know how these things can be overwhelming. Your father and I were thinking maybe we could help you manage it, take some of the burden off your shoulders. What kind of help? Well, there are a lot of legal and financial complexities. We could set up a trust, make sure everything is handled properly. We know a wonderful attorney who specializes in these situations. I closed my eyes. Even now, they were still trying to manipulate me. That's very generous, I said, but I think I'll handle it myself. Mom's voice got sharper. Sarah, I'm not sure you understand how complicated this is, and frankly, we're worried about your judgment lately. You've seemed very stressed, very emotional. About what? Well, missing family gatherings, not returning calls promptly, some of the financial decisions you've been making. They'd been watching me, cataloging everything, building their case. And I'd been blind to it. I appreciate your concern, I said, but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Are you, though? Dad's voice came on the line. He must have been listening on another extension. Because from where we're sitting, you seem overwhelmed, maybe even a little unstable. There it was, the accusation, delivered with just enough plausible deniability that they could backtrack if needed. I'm hanging up now, I said. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We're just trying to. I ended the call. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with texts from various relatives. Mom and Dad had apparently called everyone, expressing their deep concern about my mental state and my ability to handle Grandma's inheritance responsibly. That's when I decided to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I spent the next week with David and his colleagues documenting everything. We found the court filings my parents had started, the psychiatrist they'd contacted, even emails between them discussing the best way to approach the Sarah situation. But more importantly, we discovered they'd done this before. Not just with Jessica, but with my cousin Mark when he inherited his father's business, and with my Aunt Linda when she received a settlement from a car accident. They had a pattern of targeting family members who came into money, and they'd been successful at least twice. I also learned something else. They'd been living far beyond their means for years, funding their lifestyle with money they'd managed for other family members, money that was never properly returned. David helped me set up a meeting with a district attorney who specialized in elder abuse and financial fraud. Technically, I wasn't elderly, but the manipulation tactics were the same. This is more common than people think, the DA told me. Family members using guardianship laws to gain control of assets. It's hard to prosecute because it often looks like genuine concern. But you have documentation, David pointed out. We do, and if she's willing to help us build a case, we might be able to prevent this from happening to other families. I agreed to help, not just for me, but for everyone they'd targeted over the years. The investigation took 3 months. During that time, my parents tried everything: guilt trips, emotional manipulation, bringing in other family members to pressure me. They even showed up at my house once, demanding to know why I was destroying the family. "You're making a mistake," Dad said, standing on my front porch. "We're your parents. We love you. Everything we've done has been for your own good." Including trying to have me declared mentally incompetent, I asked. Mom's face crumpled. "We never, that's not, you're twisting everything." "I have the court documents," I said quietly. "I have the emails. I have the bank records showing what you did to Mark and Linda. I know exactly what you were trying to do." They left without another word. The district attorney's office filed charges in February: attempted financial fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. My parents hired an expensive lawyer, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trial was difficult. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to my parents' lawyer paint me as an ungrateful daughter who was persecuting two loving parents was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But then the DA presented our evidence: the emails between my parents discussing my weaknesses they could exploit, the financial records showing the money they'd taken from other family members, the psychiatrist testifying that my parents had asked him to find me incompetent, regardless of his actual assessment. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. My parents were convicted on all counts. Dad received 2 years in prison. Mom got 18 months, and they were ordered to pay restitution to everyone they'd defrauded over the years. But the real vindication came afterward. Other family members started coming forward, sharing their own stories of financial manipulation and emotional abuse. Jessica and I started a support group for family members who'd been targeted by relative financial predators. The last time I saw my parents was at the sentencing hearing. Mom was crying, Dad was angry, and both of them kept looking at me like I was the villain in this story. I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just relief that it was over. David and I never did make it to that family reunion, but we started hosting our own gatherings, ones where people came because they wanted to, not because they were being manipulated. The money from grandma's inheritance is safe now, protected in accounts my parents can never touch. We paid off our mortgage, set up the kids' college funds, and I finally started that business I'd been dreaming about. But more importantly, I learned to trust my instincts. And I learned to trust my husband, whose quick thinking that Saturday morning saved us from a trap I never saw coming. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd kept driving that day. If we'd walked into that house with the court appointed psychiatrist waiting, the kids watching, my parents ready to document every emotional reaction as evidence of my instability, I probably would have lost everything. Instead, I gained something I didn't even know I was missing: the knowledge that I'm stronger than I thought, and that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones you need to be most careful around. My parents were released from prison last month. They haven't contacted me, and I haven't reached out to them. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt, but that's okay. Because I've built new bridges with friends who support me, with family members who respect my boundaries, and most importantly, with myself. The road to that family reunion taught me something valuable. Sometimes the most important turn you can make is the one that takes you away from where you thought you were supposed to go. What do you think? Was I right to pursue criminal charges against my parents, or should I have handled this as a private family matter? Have you ever had to cut ties with family members for your own protection? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonates,